Hi, this is Andre. I want to talk about using various Echoplex functions and techniques to get contrasting song structure and song sections out of the Echoplex Digital Pro. So we're going to look at a tune that I've been playing live since 2004 called Interference. It's been a big part of my solo sets since that time, and it's going to look at different ways of kind of orchestrating the structure of a tune that has fixed sections and a fixed melody. And I'll talk at great length about the details of how all this stuff works afterwards. To start with, though, let's check out just the single performance, unedited with no commentary, and then after that we will start dissecting it. So first and foremost, the paint splatter t-shirt there is not there just for aesthetic value and not just because I'm a slob, although both of those things are true. But the floor that I recorded this performance on, the wooden floor, is a little uneven. So if you put the pedal down on it and you step on some of the pedals, the actual pedal will move around, will flop back and forth. This is a really common thing on a lot of floors and a lot of stages. So the reason the shirt is there on the lower left-hand corner is just to stabilize the pedal board so that when I do hit the pedals, the pedal board itself doesn't move or flop around. This is something that happens a lot, and it's just the nature of dealing with uneven floors. So the structure for a song like this is not just based on melodies and sections, but also based on very specific ways of manipulating loops and particularly copying loops and copying back and forth to different locations, switching between loops, making changes to loops at certain points. So as much as it is about getting melodies in specific sections, it's also about knowing exactly when I have to copy loop 1 into loop 2, when I need to switch from loop 1 back to loop 3, etc., etc. So to start with, I'm going to actually prime an empty loop, recording an empty loop, not playing anything, and then using a sus unrounded multiply to start off with a very, very short loop length of a few milliseconds. I do this stuff all the time. And then this is using a combination of unrounded multiply, sus insert, replace, and reverse, and overdub in order to try and build up the initial basic foundation loop for the tune. Now adding a snare drum type hit and kick drum sound. So now that we have a foundation loop established, I'm switching to a different bank in the FCB 1010 MIDI pedal. I'm switching to a bank that has loops 1 through 4 on the top row, and sus unrounded multiply, overdub, multiply, and replace on the bottom row. And on number 10 in the upper right-hand corner, that's actually a start point command. When you step on that pedal, that's going to define a new start point for the loop. And I do that quite a bit because sometimes I'll end up with a foundation loop that I like the sound of, but the actual technical loop point might be different than the actual musical downbeat that we arrive at once the loop gets built up. So hitting start point right at the downbeat of the loop means that we can line up the actual technical start point of the loop at the same place that it sounds musically. Copy this loop, loop 1, into loop 2. We're doing this because once we get into loop 2, we're going to develop the loop and change it to give it a distinctly different sound and feel. Basically, by doing this, by copying loop 1 into loop 2 and then working with loop 2, adding new stuff to it, we're creating different section templates. So I think of loop 2 as being the A section of this tune and loop 1 as being the B section. Now you can't see it off screen, but I kicked in an octave down pedal effect on the Vox Tone Lab that I'm playing through so that I can add in a bass line, and I'm multiplying the loop out a few times in order to fit the entire bass line in there. And we're getting ready to start recording the first pass of the main melody for what we're calling the A section, which means that I'm going to start multiplying at the same time that I'm going to be playing the melody. And then we're going to multiply out to however many cycles it takes for one time through the melody to get overdubbed into the loop. Now I'm actually ending the multiply process here with overdub because I don't want to overdub what I'm about to play when the loop starts playing back. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but overdub was open when we started the multiply process. And if overdub is open when you start multiplying and you use the overdub button as an alternate ending to multiply, that will switch overdub off. And part of the design of this tune is that I'm playing different harmonies against the melodies each time they come around. So I don't want the part that I'm about to play live against the looped melody to be added into the loop. I want it to just be played live and not be added in, so that each time the loop comes around again, each time the melody plays again, I can play a different harmony, but the different harmonies aren't stacking up. They're not being layered on top of each other. They're just happening as I'm playing them live. So now a couple of things have to happen. I need to switch back to loop 1 at the end of this pass-through of the melody, and then within one cycle's length, I need to do a double click on loop 3 so that I can start copying loop 1 into loop 3. At the same time that that's happening, I also need to start playing the B section melody. So switching from loop 2 back to loop 1 in this tune is always a little stressful for me because I know that I only have that one cycle to be able to double click into loop 3 and get ready to play that melody. And technically, we started copying on measure 2 of this particular section, but it doesn't really matter because switch quantize is set to cycle. So as long as I get 8 cycles in this new loop that I'm building up in loop 3, and as long as I get out of loop 3 at the end of the right cycle, then when we get back to loop 3, everything will be lined up. Now, once we've finished the copy into loop 3, I am leaving overdub open because for this B section, I do have the melody layers being built on top of each other. So I'm playing different harmonizations, but I do have the different harmonies being overdubbed and stacked on top of each other. Now, at the same time that I finish overdubbing that harmony line on the B section, on loop 3, I'm also switching back to loop 2, and as soon as loop 2 playback begins, I'm playing a different harmony for the A section melody. This is one of the trickiest parts of the tune for me mentally, just because it's a lot to keep track of for me. So that was one pass through the A section with me playing a harmonized line, harmonizing the melody, but not overdubbing the harmony. Now we're going to go through the A section again, but this time I'm playing a different harmony, so it's going to have a different flavor to it yet again. And now we're about to switch to loop 3, which is the B section, and overdub is open in loop 3, which means that as soon as we enter loop 3, anything that I play is going to be added into the loop. And again, this is a section where I'm deliberately adding harmonized layers on top of each other for a cumulative effect, as opposed to the A section where I'm playing harmonies live, but they're not being added into the loop. And now we're about to do a remultiply because we're going to go from the B section into a kind of solo grooving section. So I'm just taking that one bass line fragment and remultiplying down to just that so that that becomes the new foundation of the loop. So at this point, this is basically just a section of strolling with the loop, trying to keep it evolving and dynamic and grooving as much as I can. It's kind of a rhythm section solo, I guess you could say. So now I'm getting to the climax of the rhythm section solo, so I'm going to use sus unrounded multiply to glitch out the loop. That's something I do all the time. And then as soon as I press the loop 2 button, we're going to jump back to the A section. And as soon as we do that, I'm also going to be playing a harmony live. So now for the climax of the tune, I'm doing a remultiply, and now I finally am overdubbing all the different harmony layers. We're just taking the last couple of measures of the melody section and repeating them over and over. That's another thing that I do a lot in a lot of different tunes. And now there's some more gratuitous sus unrounded multiply climax stuff, and switching back to loop 1 for the original foundation groove that we started with. We haven't really been back to this loop since we built up loop 3 for the B section, but this is where it all began. One other thing I should mention as well is that even though there's a lot of stuff that is very meticulously planned out and rehearsed ahead of time for a tune like this, there's also a lot of room for randomness. At the very, very beginning of the performance, when I'm building up the initial loop, I am not consciously going for that exact loop. Things like that have little audio details that are milliseconds long. I don't think I could duplicate a loop like that even if I wanted to. So on the one hand, it's very preconceived, as we've talked about. On the other hand, there's a lot of room for plugging that structure into spontaneous loops. And in some cases, I might actually not even think to start playing a tune until I find that I'm in a particular kind of echoplex situation where I've got a groove and a tempo and a key center working, and I'll think, oh, I could plug such and such sound into this. And then I will start transitioning it into a foundation for an actual tune. The other thing I'll say is that every time I was entering a new loop, copying a new loop, I was doing double-click copying. You don't necessarily have to do that if you're starting from scratch, but I do that out of habit because when I'm building up a tune like this, sometimes I will need to overwrite loops that already have content in them in order to make room for the new stuff in the song that I'm playing. So that is one slice of how I approach using song structure and taking some composed ideas and trying to integrate them with a lot of the randomness and spontaneity that I really love about looping. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.